I recognize Mr. Strong for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to remember those that are defending America's southern border as we're a matter of hours from not an insurgent, but an all-out invasion of tens of thousands of illegal migrants, to name a few, from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Cuba, Haiti, Iran, Russia, and China too. While fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, marijuana continues to pour into America, and the Secretary of Homeland Security continues to testify and spew that on every network he has operational control of the southern border. As this administration struggles to admit that their policies created the southern border debacle that will soon unfold before the world's eyes, the fact is President Donald Trump's policies worked and America was protected. Thank you again for being here with us today. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, was originally formed under the Trump administration to reduce and eliminate threats to U.S. critical physical and cyber infrastructure. It's hard to believe the agency has gotten so far away from its original mission. This shouldn't come as a surprise if you recall CISA Director Jen Easterly's view on CISA's mission, which Chairman Bishop just reminded us of. In August of 2021, she said, one could argue we're in the business of critical infrastructure, and the most critical infrastructure is our cognitive infrastructure. The director of CISA, whose mission is to protect and secure our country's sensitive infrastructure, is more worried about policing America's thoughts than cyber attacks coming from China and Russia. Much of the public information regarding CISA's censorship activities is only known because of the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit and the release of internal communications from Twitter after it came under new ownership. One such revelation includes that there is a formalized process for government officials to directly flag content on Facebook and Instagram and request its removal or suppression. I have an image that I would like to put on the screen.
Ordered.
This is the landing page for Meta's content request system, which is still active as of this morning. You must have a government or law enforcement email to use. Yet CISA officials maintain that they, and I quote, don't flag anything to social media organizations at all. We don't do any censorship. Mr. Weingarten, can you share some additional examples of actions that DHS and CISA specifically have taken to keep their actions hidden from America's people?
Thank you, Congressman.
Yes, sir.
Several instances of this. First, there's been stonewalling of congressional inquiries into CISA's efforts, and subsequently the House Judiciary Weaponization Subcommittee has subpoenaed Director Easterly in connection with the subject that we're talking about today. Beyond that, there's been scrubbing of not only documents, but also websites, which illustrate the fact that CISA was intently focused and may well still be intently focused, and certainly its partners are intently focused on domestic speech. In fact, it's almost comical. If you go to a site, I believe the URL was cisa.gov/MDM, it now takes you to a foreign dis and malinformation site. There's no sign of domestic activity that it's pursuing related to it. So I would say scrubbing, stonewalling are the two biggest instances that we've seen thus far.
Thank you. There have been several examples of DHS trying to expand its censorship activities only to back down when the public found out, such as last year's effort to create a disinformation governance board. Mr. Weingarten, do these actions suggest about where DHS would like to go in the disinformation space in the future?
I think by the words of the DHS secretary, absolutely. But if they are not able to carry it on, their partners, actually in the private sector side, were encouraging the creation, I believe, of something like a Center for Mis and Disinformation Excellence within the government, and that seems to be what the DGB was intended to be. But we have many other ministries of countering mis, dis, and malinformation, even if there isn't some oversight body layered onto it.
Thank you. I thank each of you for being here today. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for being here. I'd like to take a second to push back on one of my colleagues' comments that he made a second ago to a friend of mine who's not in the room to defend herself. Mr. Ivey actually said, quote, "I guess Ms. Lake is still saying that the election was stolen from her, even though there's clear, according to the officials in this state, that this was not the case." Now, I find it funny when people in this town use that defense, according to the officials. Right. Like the American people believe the officials. They don't. A recent Pew study showed that only 20